The grand conclave of the Galactic Concord hung in the cold void above the gas giant Velos Prime, a ring of black spires and shimmering shields that pulsed with ancient power. Inside the chamber of final accord, silence pressed down like a physical force. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the tiered galleries, some with eyes like molten glass, others with skin that shifted color with every breath, a few floating in anti-gravity pods filled with thick, green liquid. All of them stared at the single human standing alone in the center of the vast chamber. Kyle Rennick wore a plain dark suit, no armor, no insignia, no visible weapon. His hands were clasped behind his back, his posture relaxed, though his heart hammered against his ribs. Around him, holographic screens floated in the air, showing damning footage, human warships cutting through forbidden space, encrypted signals traced to Earth, and a blurred image of a strange device labeled Project Icarus. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict was already decided. At the highest point of the chamber, seated on a throne forged from compressed star matter, rose the Consul of the Concord, Vorak, the Unbowed. He stood 7 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and skin like polished obsidian. His eyes glowed violet, and when he spoke, his voice vibrated through the very air, making the floor tremble. Species designation Homo sapiens, Vorak began, his tone dripping with contempt. You have broken the Treaty of Celestial Accord. You have entered neutral systems without permission. You have built weapons forbidden by galactic law. You have lied, hidden, and schemed while under the protection of this council. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The chamber remained utterly still. For these crimes, Vorak continued, the Galactic Concord finds you guilty of galactic destabilization, technological recklessness, and willful deception. Therefore, by the authority granted to this body by the Charter of Unity, we declare total war upon your world. Earth and all its colonies shall be placed under immediate quarantine. Your fleets will be dismantled, your governments dissolved. Your species shall live under eternal stewardship, for your own safety and for the safety of the galaxy. A low hum of approval rippled through the chamber. Some delegates nodded. Others leaned forward, eager to witness the humans' collapse. They expected tears, begging, maybe even a breakdown. After all, humanity was young, barely 2 centuries into spaceflight. They were newcomers, fragile, emotional, and outmatched. But Kyle Rennick did none of those things. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small silver lighter and a thin white cigarette. With slow, deliberate movements, he placed the cigarette between his lips, flicked the lighter, and lit it. The tiny flame cast a warm orange glow on his face in the cold, sterile chamber. He took a long drag, held the smoke in his lungs for a moment, then exhaled slowly. The smoke curled upward, defying the chamber's artificial gravity, drifting like a ghost among the alien dignitaries. Funny, he said, his voice calm and clear, carrying easily through the silent room. We were just about to declare war on you. The words landed like a bomb. Before anyone could react, the lights in the chamber flickered, then died. Emergency panels flashed red. Alarms blared in a dozen alien languages. Outside the transparent dome of the chamber, the vast fleet of conquered warships, hundreds of vessels from dozens of species, suddenly went dark. Engines shut down. Shields collapsed. Navigation systems failed. Every ship in orbit had lost power at the exact same moment. Panic erupted. Delegates shouted into comms that no longer worked. Security drones dropped from the ceiling, sputtered, and crashed to the floor. Vorak's violet eyes flared wide with shock and rage. Kyle didn't move. He just took another drag of his cigarette, watching the chaos unfold around him with quiet amusement. From the upper walkway, a figure emerged, Commander Elira Voss, Earth's top intelligence officer. She wore a black tactical suit and moved with the precision of a predator. In her hand, she held a small device that pulsed with soft blue light. The silent armada is online, she said, her voice calm despite the storm around her. All conquered vessels are disabled. No damage, just off, Kale nodded. Good, I didn't want to hurt anyone. Just make a point. Elira stepped down to his side, her eyes scanning the terrified faces of the alien delegates. They thought we were weak, she said quietly. That we'd roll over and accept whatever they handed us. They forgot one thing, Kale replied, flicking ash onto the polished floor. Humans don't kneel. On the main view screen, which had somehow remained active, a new image appeared. It showed the edge of the Velos system. From the darkness of space, ships began to emerge, not with the roar of engines or the flash of jump drives, but silently, like shadows given form. 300 of them, sleek, black featureless hulls that absorbed light rather than reflected it. No markings, no signals. They simply were. The Conquered had never seen anything like them. "That's impossible," whispered a delegate from the crystalline Luminae species, his voice trembling. "No ship can hide from long-range sensors like that." "They can if they don't run on conventional power," Elira said. "Ours don't." Kale turned to face Vorak, who stood frozen on his throne, fists clenched, his forearms trembling with fury and fear. "You declared war," Kale said, his voice steady. "But you never asked what we've been doing while you watched us through your spy satellites and diplomatic reports. While you argued over trade routes and resource quotas, we were building something you can't even name." He paused, letting the words sink in. "In 6 hours," he continued, "Project Icarus activates. It doesn't fire missiles or drop bombs. It disrupts the quantum fabric of faster-than-light travel. Permanently. The Cathari relay? Already offline. The Helios junction? Gone, and right now, the Velos gate is collapsing." As if on cue, a technician from the insectoid Vraxian delegation screamed, pointing at his console. "The gate, it's gone." The entire corridor just vanished. Murmurs turned to shouts. Delegates scrambled for their comms, trying to contact their homeworlds, their fleets, their families. But with FTL travel failing, the galaxy was being cut into isolated islands. The Conquered, the mighty, unshakable alliance that had ruled for 10,000 years, was suddenly fragile. Vorak's voice boomed again, but this time it cracked with desperation. "You're bluffing. No species could build such a weapon without us knowing." Kale took one last drag, then dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his heel. "Then check your sensors again, Consul. And ask yourself, why did we let you catch us breaking the rules in the first place?" The truth hit Vorak like a physical blow. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't arrogance. It was a trap. Humanity had lured the entire Concord into one place, exposed their weakness, and flipped the script in under 5 minutes. And the worst part? They hadn't even fired a single shot. In the stunned silence that followed, Kale Rennick stood tall, not as a prisoner, but as the only one in the room who knew what came next. The galaxy had just learned a hard lesson. Never underestimate a species that smiles while lighting a cigarette in the face of annihilation. Chaos spread through the Galactic Concord like wildfire. In the hours after Kale Rennick lit that cigarette, the once mighty alliance began to crack. Ships floated dead in orbit, their crews shouting in confusion. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the chamber as alien delegates argued, accused, and panicked. Some tried to flee in shuttles only to find their engines useless. Others demanded answers from Vorak, who stood frozen on his throne, his violet eyes burning with disbelief. Kale didn't gloat. He simply walked out of the chamber with Elira at his side, past stunned guards who no longer knew whether to arrest him or salute him. They boarded a small Earth shuttle waiting in the docking bay, its systems untouched, humming softly as if nothing had happened. Back on the bridge, Elira pulled up a star map. Red dots blinked out one by one across the galaxy. "The Cathari relay is gone," she said. "Helios Junction collapsed 10 minutes ago. Now the Velos gate's offline too. FTL lanes are failing faster than we predicted." Kale stared at the map. "Good. That means Icarus is working. But it's not just conquered space," Elira added, her voice tight. "The ripple's spreading. Neutral systems are reporting blackouts. Even pirate fleets are stranded." "That's the point," Kale said. "No one gets to hide behind distance anymore. If you want to talk, you'll have to come the old way. Slow, careful, and honest." Meanwhile, aboard the Conquered flagship Dawn of Unity, Vorak finally broke his silence. He activated a private channel to his inner council. "Find out everything about Project Icarus. I don't care how. Scour every human data cache, interrogate every prisoner, hack every satellite. I want to know how they did this." But Earth had left nothing to find. Their networks were clean, their archives encrypted with codes that changed every second. Their ships, especially the black ones now hovering silently at the edge of the system, emitted no heat, no radiation, no signals. They were ghosts. Those ships belonged to the Silent Armada, a fleet Earth had built in secret over 40 years. Hidden in asteroid belts disguised as mining stations or folded into dead zones where sensors couldn't reach, they had watched the galaxy while pretending to be harmless. Now they revealed themselves not to attack but to show the truth. Humanity was not weak. It had simply been waiting. On Earth, President Mara Lin addressed the World Senate from the Lunar Command bunker. Her face was calm, but her hands gripped the podium tightly. "We did not start this war," she said, "but we will end it. Not with fire, but with truth." The conquered believed we were children playing with toys. They never saw the trap because they never believed we could build one. Some senators cheered. Others warned of retaliation. "What if they rebuild?" one asked. "What if they find a way around Icarus?" Mara looked at the live feed from Velos Prime. "Then they'll have to face us again, and next time we won't give them a warning." Back in orbit, Kale and Elira received a priority message. It was encrypted with an old Earth code, one not used since the early days of deep space exploration. The sender ID read, "Odyssey." Elira's breath caught. "That's impossible. The Odyssey vanished 80 years ago. First colony ship, lost beyond the Orion Veil." Kale frowned. "Play it." A grainy audio file crackled to life. A woman's voice, weak but clear, spoke through static. "This is Captain Lean of the UES Odyssey. If anyone hears this, tell Earth." They lied about the silence. "The Marathi found it first. They're using it. Don't trust your history. Don't trust your memories. The past is broken." The transmission cut off. Kale and Elira exchanged a look. They both knew what the silence meant. Decades ago, Earth had sent probes past the galactic rim. Most returned corrupted. One came back with fragments of data about an ancient race, the Architects, who had vanished after building a machine that could erase events from time itself. The project was classified, deemed too dangerous. But now the Odyssey, thought lost forever, was saying the Marathi had it, and they'd been using it to control the galaxy. They rewrote history, Elira whispered. That's how the Concord stayed united for so long. They erased every rebellion, every rival, every threat before it could grow. Kyle's mind raced. If the Marathi could erase events, then maybe Earth's rise wasn't an accident. Maybe they'd allowed it, because they thought they could control it. Or erase it later. But Project Icarus had changed the game. With FTL collapsing, the Marathi couldn't hide anymore. And if the Odyssey was still out there, broadcasting that message, it meant the silence hadn't reached them. They were outside its range. "We have to find them," Kale said. "We can't," Elira replied. "Marathi space is locked down. And without FTL, it'll take months to get there." "Not if we use the back door," Kale said, pulling up an old star chart. "There's a fold path near the Ghost Nebula. Unstable but passable. Our stealth ships can ride the quantum wake without triggering alarms." Elira hesitated. "If we leave now, the Conquered might think we're fleeing. Or attacking." "Let them think," Kyle said. "While they argue, we'll find the truth." That night, under cover of the system-wide blackout, the Wraith, a small, needle-shaped corvette painted matte black, slipped away from the Conquered fleet. No one noticed. No one could. As it jumped into the unstable fold path, Kale looked back at the dying lights of Velos Prime. He knew the real war hadn't even begun. The Conquered's declaration was just noise. The Marathi's secret weapon was the real threat. And if the Odyssey was right, then everything humanity thought it knew about the galaxy, its history, its enemies, even its own past, might be a lie carefully crafted by those who controlled time itself. But humans had a strange habit. They questioned lies. They dug for truth. And when cornered, they fought not just with weapons, but with ideas. The Wraith vanished into the dark, carrying 2 humans and a secret that could shatter the galaxy, or save it. On Earth, children still played in the parks. Farmers still tended their fields. Scientists still studied the stars. None of them knew that their envoy had just lit a cigarette and changed the fate of the cosmos. But they would soon, because silence never lasts when humans are around. The Wraith moved through space like a shadow slipping between cracks in reality. Outside its hull, the stars stretched into thin lines, then snapped back into place as the ship dropped out of the fold path near the edge of Marathi-controlled space. No alarm sounded. No patrol ships appeared. The Marathi, confident in their hidden dominance, never expected anyone to come this deep into their territory, especially not in a ship too small to register on long-range scans. Inside the cockpit, Cale Rennick studied the star map on his screen. A single blinking dot marked the last known location of the UES Odyssey, orbiting a dead star deep inside the Veil of Morning, a nebula so dense that even light struggled to pass through. Elira Voss monitored sensor readings, her fingers dancing across the console. No energy signatures, she said. No comms. No life signs. But there's something there. A faint heat echo. Old but steady, Cale nodded. That's her. She's been waiting. They approached slowly, cutting all active systems. The Wraith coasted on inertia alone, its hull absorbing stray radiation like a sponge. As they drew closer, the shape of the Odyssey emerged from the dust. A massive, aging colony ship, its solar panels cracked, its hull scarred by decades of cosmic storms. Yet it still held together like a stubborn old soldier refusing to fall. A weak signal crackled over the comm. Identify yourself. This is Cale Rennick of Earth, Cale replied. We received your message. Silence. Then prove it. Elira entered a code, one only the original crew of the Odyssey would recognize. A pause. Then the ship's docking bay lights flickered on. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. The corridors were dim, lit by emergency strips that buzzed softly. The crew that greeted them was small, only 12 survivors out of the original 300. They were old now, their faces lined, their movements slow, but their eyes sharp with intelligence and pain. Captain Leon stood at the front, her silver hair tied back, her uniform faded but clean. She looked at Cale and Elira with a mix of hope and fear. You shouldn't have come, she said. Not yet. We had to, Cale replied. You said the Marathi lied about the silence. What does that mean? Leon led them to the ship's core chamber. There, on a central display, played a looped recording from one of their deep space probes. It showed ruins, vast geometric structures buried under ice on a dead moon. And inside those ruins, a machine, smooth, black, humming with energy that bent light around it. The architects didn't vanish, Leon said. They were erased. By their own creation, the silence engine. It doesn't destroy matter. It removes events from time. If you activate it on a battle, that battle never happened. If you use it on a planet, that planet never existed. Kyle felt a chill. And the Marathi found it. Yes, Leon said. They didn't just find it. They mastered it. For thousands of years, they've used it to shape the galaxy. Every war they won, they erased the losses. Every rival species that disappeared, gone from history. Even the founding of the Concord, they made it look like unity, but it was control. They let species rise just enough to be useful, then cut them down if they got too strong. Elira's face went pale. That means everything we know could be false. Our history, our enemies, maybe even why we left Earth. Exactly, Leon said. But there's a flaw. The engine can't affect things outside its range. We were too far out. That's why we survived. That's why we remember. Cale stared at the image of the engine. Why tell us now? Because they know you're close, Leon said. Project Icarus disrupted the FTL network. That weakened the engine's influence. For the first time in centuries, the Marathi are vulnerable. And Vorak, he's desperate. He won't let you expose the truth. As if on cue, alarms blared through the Odyssey. Red lights flashed. Incoming ships, a crewman shouted. Marathi patrol, 3 cruisers. Cale cursed. They tracked us. No, Elira said, checking the Wraith's logs. They didn't track us. They were already coming. They knew someone would find this place. Leon's eyes widened. They're going to activate the engine. On Earth, Cale's blood ran cold. Not to destroy it. To erase it. Yes, Leon whispered. They'll make it so humanity never existed. No colonies. No rebellion. No Project Icarus, just silence. The Marathi ships closed in, their weapons charging. But the Odyssey was defenseless. The Wraith was too small to fight. What do we do? Elira asked. Cale looked at the probe footage again. At the engine. At the way it bent light, twisted time. He remembered Earth's own experiments. How they'd built temporal anchors to protect their ships from Icarus's side effects. Small devices that locked an object in its own timeline, making it immune to outside changes. We don't stop the engine, he said slowly. We reflect it. Elira stared at him. That's insane. If it backfires, you could unravel yourself. Or I could give them a taste of their own medicine, Cale said. They erased others for centuries. Let them see what it feels like. Leon handed him a data chip. The full schematics of the engine are here. Weak points. Timing sequences. If anyone can do this, it's you. The Marathi ships opened fire. Energy beams tore through the nebula, missing the Odyssey by meters. The old ship groaned under the strain. Go, Leanne shouted. Get back to the Wraith. We'll hold them off as long as we can. Kyle hesitated. You'll die. We've been dead for 80 years, she said with a sad smile. Now we get to mean something. Kale and Elira ran back through the shaking corridors. Behind them, the Odyssey powered up its last defense, a magnetic pulse that fried its own systems but scrambled the Marathi targeting long enough for the Wraith to launch. As they shot into the void, the Odyssey exploded, not from enemy fire but from its own overload. A final act of defiance, Kale didn't look back. He plugged Leanne's data chip into the Wraith's core. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. He began reprogramming the temporal anchor, not as a shield but as a mirror. They think time is theirs to control, he said, fingers flying over the console. But time isn't a weapon. It's a river, and you can't stop a river by standing in it. Elira set course for the Marathi homeworld. We won't make it in time. We don't have to, Kale said. The engine broadcasts its effect through quantum entanglement. If I sync the anchor to its frequency, I can bounce the pulse back the moment it fires. It was a gamble, a 1 in a million chance, but humans had never been good at playing it safe. As the Wraith dove toward the hidden planet beneath the veil of morning, Kale lit one last cigarette. Not out of calm, but because in that moment he needed to feel human, because soon the whole galaxy might forget what that meant. The Wraith slipped through the veil of morning like a whisper through a tomb. The nebula's thick dust and magnetic storms hid it from every Marathi sensor. Below, the planet Myrathis hung in the void, a world of black stone cities and towering spires that pulsed with violet energy. At its heart, buried deep beneath the crust, lay the silence engine. Kyle Rennick sat in the pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the scanner. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. The plan was simple in theory. Sync the temporal anchor to the engine's activation frequency, then trigger a reflection pulse the moment it fired. In practice, it was suicide. If the timing was off by even a millisecond, the feedback would erase the Wraith and everyone in it from existence. Elira Voss monitored the planet's defenses. No patrols, no scans. They think they're untouchable. Good, Kyle said. Arrogance is their weakness. He guided the ship into a narrow canyon near the planetary pole, where ancient lava tubes offered cover. They landed in silence, engines off, lights dimmed. Outside, the air was thin and cold. The ground shimmered with strange crystals that hummed at a frequency just below hearing. They moved on foot, wearing stealth suits that bent light around them. The entrance to the engine chamber was hidden beneath a false mountain. Guarded by only 2 sentries, Marathi warriors in black armor, their forearms crossed, their eyes glowing faintly. Kale didn't fight them. He waited. When one turned to speak to the other, he struck, fast, quiet, precise. A neural tap to the base of the skull. Both guards dropped without a sound. Inside, the tunnel sloped downward, walls lined with pulsing veins of energy. The air grew warmer, heavier. At the end, a massive door sealed the chamber. It bore no lock, no panel, just a smooth surface that seemed to drink the light. Elira scanned it. It's keyed to Vorak's biosignature. We can't open it. Kyle studied the door, then pulled a small device from his belt, the temporal anchor now modified with Leon's data. He placed it against the surface. Maybe we don't need to, the anchor hummed. The door flickered as if confused. Then slowly it dissolved into mist. Inside, the chamber was vast. A hollow sphere carved from solid rock, lit by a single column of light rising from the center. There, floating in midair, was the silence engine. It looked like a black sphere made of liquid shadow, constantly shifting, never still. Around it, rings of alien script rotated slowly, glowing with violet fire. And standing before it, arms raised, was Vorak. He turned, his eyes flaring with rage. You, he hissed. You should not be here. Neither should you, Kale said, stepping forward. Playing God with time. Vorak laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Time is not for playing. It is for controlling. The galaxy is chaos. We brought order. We removed the noise. The failures. The weak. Like us? Elira asked. No, Vorak said. You were never weak. That was the problem. You grew too fast, thought too deep. built things you should not understand. We allowed your rise because we believed we could erase you when the time came. And now? Kale asked. Now, Vorax said, turning back to the engine. I end you before you break everything. He placed his hands on the control glyphs. The engine pulsed. The air grew thick as if reality itself was holding its breath. Kale didn't run. He activated the anchor. A blue light spread from his device, forming a dome around him and Elira. Outside, the world began to blur. Colors ran like wet paint. Sounds stretched and snapped. Time was unraveling, Vorax smiled. It is done. In 3 seconds, Earth will never have existed. But Kale wasn't listening. He watched the engine's pulse the exact moment it sent its beam toward Earth's timeline. He waited. 1 second. 2. Then, at the third, he triggered the reflection. The anchor flared white-hot. The engine's beam reversed. Vorax's smile vanished. No! The pulse hit him first, his body flickered. One moment he was there, tall and proud. The next he was gone, as if he had never been born. Then the chamber itself began to fade. The walls, the floor, the very air erased from history. But Kale and Elira remained, protected by the anchor's bubble. Outside, the planet Myrathis shuddered. Cities crumbled into dust that never settled. Ships in orbit blinked out of existence. Across the galaxy, records changed. Maps rewrote themselves. Species that had lived under Myrathi rule suddenly remembered a different past, one without their shadow. The silence engine collapsed in on itself, vanishing with a sound like a sigh. Kyle lowered the anchor. The chamber was gone. They stood on bare rock under a starless sky. The planet was dead, not destroyed, but forgotten. Elira checked her comm. The Myrathi hegemony. It's gone. No records, no ships. No homeworld. It's like they never existed. Kale looked up at the empty sky. They wanted to erase us. Instead, they erased themselves. But something felt wrong. The silence was too deep, too complete. Then a new signal appeared on Elira's scanner, a faint ping from deep space. It was repeating the same phrase over and over. The past is broken. The past is broken. Kyle recognized it. It was the Odyssey's warning, but the Odyssey was destroyed unless... Time isn't fixed, he said slowly. When we reflected the pulse, we didn't just erase the Myrathi. We created a fracture, a wound in history. Elira's face paled. If the fracture spreads, everything could unravel, Kale finished. Not just the Myrathi, everyone, every event, every life. They had won the battle, but the war wasn't over. The silence engine was gone, but its echo remained. And if no one healed the tear in time, the galaxy would fade into nothingness. One memory at a time. Kale looked at Earth's coordinates on his screen. Far away, but not unreachable. We have to go back. Tell them what happened. Build something new. Something that doesn't rely on erasing the past. Elira nodded. But who will believe us? The conquered is in chaos. Earth is isolated, and now, there's no proof the Myrathi ever existed. Kale smiled faintly. Then will be the proof. They boarded the Wraith. As it lifted off the dead world, Kyle took one last look at the ruins. He didn't feel victory. He felt responsibility, because humans didn't just survive. They remembered. And in a universe that kept trying to forget, that was the most dangerous power of all. The ship jumped into the dark, carrying 2 people and the weight of all that had been, and all that still could be. The Wraith returned to the Velo system not with weapons drawn, but with truth in hand. The conquered fleet still floated in silence, powerless, confused, and leaderless. Without the Myrathi pulling strings from the shadows, the alliance had unraveled faster than anyone expected. Delegates argued in broken circles, some accusing each other of sabotage, others begging for Earth's help to restore FTL travel. Kale Rennick and Elira Voss stepped back into the chamber of final accord, not as prisoners or rebels, but as witnesses. The same chamber that once condemned humanity now held the last hope for galactic unity. Kyle stood at the center again, but this time no holograms showed warships or weapons. Instead, Elira projected data recovered from the Odyssey and the ruins beneath Myrathis. Records of erased civilizations, rewritten treaties, and hidden wars. She showed how the Myrathi had used the silence engine to delete entire species from history, making their conquests look like peaceful unions. At first, the delegates refused to believe it. "There is no proof," said a Vraxian elder, his antennae twitching in disbelief. "The Marathi were founding members of the Conquered. They built this peace." "They built a lie," Kale said calmly. "And when Project Icarus broke their control over FTL, the lie started to crack. That's why they panicked. That's why they tried to erase us." He then revealed the most painful truth. Many of their own histories were false. The Luminae had not joined the Concord willingly. They had been erased and rewritten into compliance. The Cathari rebellion never ended in surrender. It was deleted from time. Even the Treaty of Celestial Accord had been altered multiple times to favor Marathi interests. Silence filled the chamber, not the silence of fear, but of realization. One by one, the delegates checked their own archives, cross-referencing old logs, family records, and ancestral data. Slowly, inconsistencies appeared. Gaps where memories should be. Names that no longer matched official records. The truth was spreading like light through a dark room. Vorak was gone. The Marathi were gone. But the damage remained. Kale didn't ask for power. He didn't demand revenge. He simply said, "We can't bring back what was erased, but we can choose what comes next." President Mara Lynn addressed the chamber from Earth via a restored low-band signal. Her voice was steady, her words clear. "Humanity does not seek to rule. We seek partnership. A new accord, one built on honesty, shared knowledge, and mutual respect. No more secrets. No more hidden weapons. No more erasing the past to control the future." The proposal stunned the room. After centuries of hierarchy and control, the idea of true equality seemed naive, even dangerous. But with FTL still unstable and the galaxy fractured, no single species could dominate anymore. They needed each other. Days passed in tense negotiation. Earth offered to share limited Icarus data, not enough to rebuild FTL recklessly, but enough to stabilize key corridors. In return, they asked for one thing: a seat at the table, not as a junior member but as an equal. The Luminae were the first to agree. Then the Vraxians, even the proud Cathari, now remembering their lost rebellion, stood with Earth. A new council was formed, the United Stellar Pact. Its charter had 3 core rules: no forbidden weapons, no unilateral erasure of history, and no species above another. Earth scientists worked alongside alien engineers to repair the FTL network, not as masters but as partners. Kale was offered a permanent seat on the new council. He declined. "I'm not a politician," he said. "I'm just a man who lit a cigarette at the wrong time." He returned to Earth not as a hero, but as a quiet reminder of what humanity could be: clever, stubborn, and unafraid to stand alone when the galaxy demanded obedience. Months later, the first joint fleet launched under the Pact's banner, a mix of human, Luminae, and Vraxian ships painted in shared colors, flying a new symbol, an open hand holding a star. On the observation deck of the lunar command bunker, Kale watched the fleet vanish into the sky. A young officer approached, eyes wide with awe. "Sir," the officer asked, "do you think they'll ever really trust us?" Kale didn't answer right away. He looked at Earth below, blue, fragile, alive with noise and color and chaos. He thought of the Odyssey, of Captain Lien, of the billions who would never know how close they came to being forgotten. "They don't have to trust us," he finally said. "They just have to see us, and understand that we won't disappear quietly." Back in the Conquered Chamber, now renamed the Hall of Shared Memory, Elira Voss oversaw the creation of the first true galactic archive. Every species contributed their unaltered histories, even the painful ones. The goal wasn't perfection, it was truth. And in a quiet corner of the archive, a small plaque read, "In memory of those erased." May we never forget to remember. The galaxy was healing. Not perfectly, not quickly, but it was trying. And for the first time in 10,000 years, it was free, far out in the void near the edge of known space. A faint signal still pulsed. The past is broken. But now someone was listening, and someone was answering, because humans, more than any other species, knew that broken things could be fixed if you cared enough to try. Kyle lit one last cigarette, not in defiance, but in peace. The war was over. The real work had just begun.